Don't go far. I want to bring you back a little bit later in the next block to continue an important conversation. Someone familiar with just how this White House works and perhaps how it does not work. She joins me now from Washington. I'm Marissa Manigault Newman, of course, the former Director of Communications for the Office of Public Liaison at the White House. Always good to see you, Marissa. Thanks for being with me. The name that keeps coming up, this Nick Ayers as a replacement for General Kelly. Nick Ayers, Vice President, Pence's Chief of Staff. You've got a history with both men here.
Yes.
What's your sense about what's going on in this White House right now?
Well, I think that Nick has been gunning for the Chief of Staff job for a long time, but you have to also realize that there's another name. That's Mick Mulvaney. He also is still in the running. Everyone's saying Nick because Nick is putting that out probably through his camp, but don't forget that Mick Mulvaney also was a name that was thrown around often for this position. So yes, Nick wants it because he's incredibly ambitious and has never hit that and has always cozied up to the president. I remember being in some meetings with him and he would always try to say the right thing to kind of impress the president. But don't forget about Mick Mulvaney, Craig.
Is he a sycophant, Nick Ayers?
No, he yes and no. He plays two different roles depending on who he's serving. When he's with the vice president, certainly a sycophant. But when he's with the president, he's much more strategic. He tells the president what he wants to know, but also pushes back to kind of show that maybe he would be a good leader in situations where a good decision has to be made.
You previously said that you suspect that Ayers may be the one that wrote that anonymous New York Times op-ed. I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. If he is under consideration, clearly the administration doesn't think he's part of the resistance. You still think he wrote the op-ed?
I still believe that the language was very consistent with some of the memos that he wrote while I was there, and some of the emails, very consistent with something that would come out of Pence's shop. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is there's been rumors that they've actually identified who the anonymous writer was, but the White House has been very, very quiet about it because of how high level that person is supposed to have been.
You think it might be General Kelly or someone of that level?
I haven't found out who it is, but I understand from my sources that they've actually identified that person and has quietly removed them from the administration.
So that person's already going. I want to talk to you about this drama now between the West Wing and the First Lady's East Wing staff. There's always been a rivalry. Why do we think that this particular rivalry resulted in the public demand for the head of a top national security aide to go?
Well, the only reason you go public is when you don't get your way privately. And so that statement that came out of the First Lady's office served one purpose, and that was to kind of force her husband's hand to get rid of that person because they were unable to do it in the background. And so that's the only reason any staffer goes to the press, is to kind of force the president to do what they weren't able to do.
These reports that the president is brooding right now, that he is angry, if not furious. His losses in the midterms continue to grow. House Democrats promising investigations come January. What do you surmise this president's bounce back plan is going to be?
The one thing that I know that he gets enthusiastic about is a good fight. And so you'll see the president start picking fights with everyone inside the White House, outside of the White House, in his own party, in the opposition. He likes a good fight. Without the boogeyman, Donald Trump is nothing but someone who is just constantly down, down, down. And that's what you're seeing. During the rallies, when he was in the midterm campaign season, he was enthusiastic because he could turn to the caravan and immigrants and all the different boogeymans he's created. But without someone to kind of rail against, Donald Trump seems very, very disengaged. But you'll see his bounce back will be to attack, the Democrats, to create new enemies, to fight people within his own staff, and firings get him very excited, which is why you hear all this talk about him getting rid of different staffers and cabinet members.
He needs a foil, or he needs foils.
Constantly. That's the only thing that gets him excited, is chaos and controversy and conflict.
These reports that he is brooding right now, your sources would back that up. This is not a president who's pleased.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the things that he hates being accused of is not supporting the military. And what happened overseas is a clear evidence of just really not being surrounded by people to give him good political advice. And when he's made to look like a fool, the way the French president made him look foolish in the decision not to go honor fallen American citizens, veterans. This is a clear example of Donald Trump being embarrassed. And as a result, you see him sulking and he's pouting like a child. And as a result, he's going to continue to lash out, and everybody around him will be miserable, just the way he likes it.
Omarosa Manigault Newman, thank you so much. And the book,
Thanks for
of
having
course,
me.
the book is called
Unhinged.
Unhinged. You want
You're fired!
to make sure we got the
Apropos title.
Thank you, Omarosa. Always appreciate your insight.
Thanks, Greg.
Hate crimes spike for the third straight year. There's been a surge in the number of crimes fueled by hate in this country. Why? Plus, Pelosi.
Why? This is the thing I want to talk about, other than what she just talked about. It's good that they have identified the perpetrator that should be charged with a treasonous act in the high level of the White House administration. It's kind of sad that they haven't exposed that person's name to the general public, because under the Freedom of Information Act, I think by law they're supposed to. But neither here nor there. We understand the games that they play and have been playing for quite some time towards taking advantage of the American people's tax-paying money that we pay to put these people in power so that they can do the benefit of we the people. It's extraordinarily odd. There was another word that I wanted to use that a 4-star general used last night. It's beyond the normalcy that Trump is behaving the way that he's behaving right now, simply because he lost part of the election. I think it's something deeper. And I don't know if he's got some sort of medical issues that he just hasn't exposed to the general public, or if he has been blindsided by something that has bewildered him to the point that he's not acting in his norm pertaining to supposedly supporting, hands down, RVA. That was extremely abnormal for any president, much less the 45th one, to be acting in such of a unpresidential way and displaying this type of action before the world. And like I said, we have looked deeply into this to the extent that it could be something medically going on with him. And it's not just a matter of losing an election. It's not just a matter of him having his own opinion about other various leaders, regardless whether it be the leader of France or other leaders. But it's almost as if that he has given up on the fight, given up on the will to want to pursue in the endeavors of standing tall and firm and being a fighter for we the people. And it's bothersome that other people, as well as ourselves, has seen this, and we're beginning to scratch our heads towards, is it a medical thing? Is it a social indifference? Is it a financial indifference? What exactly is going on in this man's head and in this man's mind to have responded and reacted this way? And there's no doubt he was pushed. He was pushed towards making these trips in the golden year, the Jubilee, pertaining to a what's the right word that I'm looking for? Memorializing the 100th year anniversary to our veterans. But something else has occurred here. And it's puzzling to be able to put your finger on it toward just exactly what it could be or what it would be. Maybe he's tired of the rigmarole that he has to encounter on a day-to-day, everyday level. Because you have to admit, it is a strenuous job. And knowing that you're under the magnifying glass 24/7 to the point that you basically don't have no privacy whenever you step off into this arena. Your life is analyzed, deciphered, criticized, similar to that in which what I have done, being the founder of the Windmill Ministries, of everybody and their brother has some sort of an opinion, some sort of a judgment call about who you are, and what you're doing. And I'm quite sure, maybe not on this level, but I'm quite sure that the same thing occurred in other spiritual pillars of society, regardless whether it was Noah, Jacob, Moses, Jesus, and other leaders in a public sense. I'm sure that they have went through similar conflicts, similar environments. That is not pleasant at all. I mean, you take the people in Hollywood that make movies that everybody and their brother knows about, pertaining to them being celebrities, famous. They pick and choose whenever they want to go on stage and whenever they don't want to go on stage. Whenever they go on stage, they look their best. They show their best side. They are very aware that they're under the spotlight. And they display themselves in the best accord. Whenever they no longer want to be in that spotlight, they crawl off into their mansion somewhere, or they go to an island, or they take a vacation somewhere, and they get out of the spotlight. They put on dark glasses. May even put on a wig. Who knows? They disguise themselves. That way they can be no longer under that type of scrutiny. And there's other politicians as well that people are constantly recording, constantly gauging of their performance, not only in front of the camera, but beyond the camera, in their private life. And to be quite frank with you, it really is a very, very tough position to play. Because you not only have to satisfy yourself, you not only have to satisfy your family, you not only have to satisfy the general public, in your public life, but you have to satisfy the general public in your private life. And to walk on pins and needles 24/7, 7 days a week, 357 days a year, it can become astronomically worrisome on one's nerves towards wearing that person down to a frizzle. And I'm thinking, this is just my opinion about this now, I'm thinking that that is what has happened to Trump. He realizes that he has reached his weak spot towards being overloaded, and because of it, he's sulling. That's the word, that's the terminology that they want to use, sulling. He's sulling. He actually isn't sulling. From a medical standpoint, he's actually retracting. And it's a form of stage fright, or it's a form of culture shock that the body, the dormosomes and things going on in our brains are built to the effect that whenever this occurs, you automatically have things that happen in your biological profile, medically speaking, that different dormosomes, and I may be using the incorrect word, I know that I am, kick in, and you start acting weird. You start acting strange. You start acting different. I'm thinking with Donald Trump being the age that he is, he has reached a pinnacle point in his life that he's almost burnt out. You can reach a level of being fried, mentally speaking. You can just keep on and on and on and on. How many times have we heard of business people that pushed themselves to the edge to the point that they wound up taking their own lives? I heard of one incident, and then I'm going to let my viewers go. I heard of one incident where a doctor, and this was up in Nashville, Tennessee, whenever I was up there working for Price's and other body shops up in Nashville. But I heard of one incident where this doctor had went through all the schooling. He had made all these preparations in his career. He had a family. He had a wife. He had children. He had a dog. He had the American dream. Driving a BMW, going to work every day, being respected, looking like he was on top of his game. Top notch, right? Top notch. One day, something clicked in that man's mind. And he throwed his hands up and he walked away from his career. He walked away from his wife and his kids. He walked away from his home and his lifestyle. And 7 or 8, 9, 10 years ago, I was told that the man was living under a bridge in Nashville, Tennessee, living as a homeless person because something had clicked in his head to the point that he could not take the pressures of society, and he basically fried. He had a nervous breakdown. He couldn't take it no more. And we must all understand and learn from other examples, especially medical examples, that we all have limitations. Regardless whether you're an airplane pilot, you're a firefighter, you're a politician, you're a preacher, you're a teacher. We all have limitations in the human form. And we are hoping and praying for our chief and commander that he has not reached this state in his own behavior to the point that he has overloaded and he's basically retracting by showing these signs of indifferences that now is obvious of the general public witnessing. And don't say that it can't happen, because it can happen to any of us. Any of us that has a strategic job, especially dealing with the public. When you're dealing with the public, you're probably dealing with one of the hardest markets out there that's to be dealt with. That's the reason why that I know that I have not been called into the ministry towards being a pastor. A pastor, especially a big church, has to rely upon other pastors and other counselors and other people to help pull the load for him. Because if he's in a big church, if he don't watch, he's liable to wind up overloading himself. And whenever that occurs, not only is he not any good to the people that he's serving under, towards being a pastor under, but then it comes a time that he's no longer effective or any good for even for himself. You have to recognize that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link if you're a good leader. And we as mortals, we as the Homo sapien race, are part of those links. I'm a link. Each chief and commander in each nation is a link. And then the link goes down the pyramid, all the way down to the chief of police or the sheriff or deputies that hold a responsibility of a gun and a badge. These are all links. And if you can't identify your own personal weaknesses in what you can tolerate versus what you can tolerate, if you don't watch, you can push yourself over the edge to the point that you literally fry. And we're praying to God that that's not what has occurred pertaining to Mr. Donald Trump at his age, getting on one airplane after another airplane, pushing himself to the edge of the envelope, because that's basically what happened to Hillary Clinton whenever she was running against Donald Trump. You remember whenever she was getting on or going to one of her meetings, and she basically was staggering as a drunk person? You can push your body to the limits of getting on and off airplanes, going to this meeting, going to that meeting, pushing yourself to the point that you overload. Because you got to admit, the human body has limitations, and you have to admit, I don't care if you're an airplane stewardess, or you're flying an airplane, or you're working in a cockpit, or you're working a tower towards landing and allowing for planes to take off. You have to admit that everybody has their own personal limitations in what they can and cannot do. And whenever you're going up into the atmosphere and down on the ground, and up into the atmosphere and down on the ground, you're doing something, first of all, is not natural. I know that the good planes, especially the more expensive ones, they have a way of depressurizing themselves to keep your ears from popping, and to where you don't feel the sensation near as much as you would if you was in a inexpensive airplane. I understand that. But you still are putting your body and your mind and your emotions through things that the normal person down here on the ground probably won't never have to experience. Unless you're super, super rich and you yourself take a lot of flights towards business meetings all over the planet. This is a possibility, and that's the only reason why that I'm even throwing this out there, because we have seen some radical changes in Donald Trump's demeanor that brings alarms that's puzzling to not only myself but to others too as well. Sometimes we just have to learn our limitations and back up, take a deep breath, and say, you know what? Maybe I need to play more golf. Maybe I need to get a dog. Maybe I need to take up a hobby and start painting. Or maybe I need to doodle more instead of texting. You know, there's a lot of weight up onto someone like his position. A lot of responsibilities. The same way with other people. I mean, if you're flying an aircraft with 500 people on board, do you really think that is as casual as somebody out here riding a bicycle or riding in their own personal automobile? Not even close. You're responsible for 500 people. And you got to deal with not only the elements of the plane, but you have to deal with the elements that can come your way pertaining to weather, or geese, or a disrupted person on the airplane. There's all kinds of different aspects that can fall into play that can bring more pressure upon to a person. In addition, once more, that person flying that plane and the airline stewardess are going up and down, up and down, up and down. They're doing something that is not considered normal. It's abnormal. Even though we think that flying airplanes today is our normal way of life, if you really get to looking at the realization of flying, and I heard my grandfather say this whenever they supposedly landed on the moon, and he denied it. He denied it. He said that it was all being done in Hollywood. He said if it was meant for man to fly and go to the moon, God would have created wings onto the humans. That was his narrow-mindedness. That was his seeing the planet as it being flat. That was his looking inside the bubble and not realizing the potential of the human race. The fact of the matter is, it is abnormal to go to the moon. It is abnormal to live in a spaceship or colonize up in space. It is abnormal to fly in an airplane because God didn't give us wings. So we are doing something that is incredibly abnormal. And your body has to adjust to that. You got G-forces, and anybody would tell you in the military, especially Air Force, you got G-forces that you have to deal with on a day-to-day level. That can either make you sick, make you blind, make you crazy. Same way with our Navy. People that live down in submarines. That's abnormal for the body to live in those type of conditions. Now we have learned towards what we can do and what we can't do pertaining to the weaknesses of the human body. And we have learned to make adjustments regardless whether we go high or we go low. But you have to recognize the fact that we all have limitations, and some of our limitations are stronger and weaker than others. We all have different breaking points, just like the doctor. The doctor had a breaking point. And once he realized that the lifestyle that he was forcing himself to live under, that much pressure, wasn't worth it, he throwed up his hands. And I was told, I don't know how true it is, that that same doctor that was a doctor is happier today than what he ever thought about being whenever he was an actual doctor. Which once more goes back to the reflection that money isn't everything. Prestige and position and there's a price for that type of glory or that type of fame. There's a price for that. And I ain't gonna lie to you. I wouldn't want to be the President of the United States. I wouldn't want to have that type of responsibility. But neither nor would I want to be an airplane pilot neither. I'd be more satisfied in driving a taxi, being accountable for one or two lives, including my own, a whole lot more so than I would be being an airplane pilot, being accountable for 400 or 500 or 600 people. That's just my personal concept about it. Now, you can add to it and take from it any way you want to, but that's just my personal concept about what has happened to our chief and commander, and not only our chief and commander, but other people's lives too as well. Like I said, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And one must identify their weaknesses of what that they can do and what that they can't do. And it's very, very easy to overdo yourself, to be burnt out. And that is a possibility of what has occurred here pertaining to our chief and commander. Hopefully, we pray every day for his healing, for his strength. We pray that he will bounce back, just as the commentator was talking a while ago, that he will bounce back and be the same old Donald Trump in one aspect. In another aspect, he has probably had some of his wind knocked out of his sail, understanding the power of the people. Because whenever the power of the people speak, they can speak just as easily for as a yea, or just as easily as a nay. The power of the people. That is the glory in living in a democracy, towards understanding that we are not under some sort of dictatorship such as China or Russia or other communist-controlled countries. Good luck to all of us in this year of the Golden Jubilee, and shalom to my viewers and my supporters out there, and God bless each and every one of you as we're fixing to walk off into some of the most trying moments in a lot of our lives pertaining to the holidays. God bless. Shalom.